Hey there, I'm the Madcatster. My glad to see you here. I'm back from my wedding travels and I've got some stuff to talk about. There is a small business owner who learned the hard way that doing business with the Ace family is sometimes not a good idea because she got stiffed and she is furious and she is speaking out. We're going to talk about it, so let's get into it. So you can see I'm here with Sybil the Enforcer. Sybil is feeling better. She seems to be doing pretty good after this last round of therapies from the vet. And she's in good spirits and she's purring away. And she says, please like and subscribe. It always cheers her up when people subscribe. Thank you very much for helping us grow. And I've got a few people to thank at the end of the video with respect to some Amazon deliveries, so stay tuned for that. But let's talk about how one small business owner is accusing the Ace family's Landon McBroom and his sidekick, Joe, the wannabe director, of using her for some promo material from her business and then not paying for it. So her name is Anjelica Ayala, and her company is Fire Neon Signs. And I'm going to put a link down below both to her YouTube channel and to her Fire Neon website. And I went and checked it out, and her prices are pretty reasonable. And they do custom work, which is what this story is about. So anyway, she decided to start this custom neon business. And she, like all small business owners, thought, well, how can I get ahead? How can I give myself, a leg up over the competition? So she thought, well, maybe I could try to get in touch with some influencers, see if I could get them to let me make them a sign or a custom sign or two and ask them in trade for some publicity. Reasonable enough. I mean, it's not easy to make that happen sometimes, but she decided to give it a shot. So she was, and I use the word was, a big fan of the Ace family, Landon McBroom. And so she decided to reach out to Landon's roommate, Joe, the director, the wannabe director. And to her surprise, Joe actually responded to her and was interested in her offer to make them some custom neon signs in exchange for some publicity. And now Angelica is not just spouting nonsense. She posted the DMs that she exchanged with Joe, the director, and to back up her story. And so, you can see it, and I'm going to post some of them up as I'm talking. So he seemed really interested. Joe seemed really interested. And she figured he was a guy who would know what it was like to be starting from nothing. And this is what she said.
So this is going to be the start of a video about how I got scammed from Joe Casimiro and Landon McBroom. So first, let me just start off by saying I was a huge fan, Landon. I was a huge fan of you, and you came up because your brother came up. Everybody knows that. So it makes sense that you don't have any morals, integrity for small businesses because you were never one. You don't know what the struggle was like. Everything was handed to you on a silver platter. I have a small business, and the small business is neon signs. And with being an entrepreneur, you have to think of ways on how you can get exposure, right? The only way that you can kind of go about to get to them is if you kind of go to somebody that's affiliated with them, close to them, that has a smaller following, that will open up their DMs, things like that, right? So with that being said, I started following, Joe Casimiro, and then so he reaches out to me and he's like, let's work. And I'm like, what? Like, this is wild. Like, what do you mean? Like, I was just so hyped. I'm like, oh my God, like Joe,
So Joe says, hey, sure, this sounds great. And so she said, well, I could make the signs for you and you could just pay for the shipping. Basically, I'm sort of summing up. But in essence, what happened was she said, I can make you the signs, you pay the shipping, and then give me a shout out, and that would be great. And at first she had inquired about maybe Joe giving her a story on his Instagram, and he wanted $1,500 for that. So, okay. Seems a little ridiculous to me if somebody's going to give you free merchandise. I would think that you would give them a shout out just out of the goodness of your heart, you know. I know if somebody did that for me, I wouldn't be expecting a small business to pay me to promote their product. Of course, we're not talking about brand deals. We're talking about like somebody saying, here, try my product, or here's my product. And I know Sloan does a lot of this, which is really great, helping small businesses who send him samples of their products for him to try out and talk about his videos. So she said, well, what would you like? And so at first, Joe wanted a sign for some company. I'm not sure whose company it was. It's not his company. I don't know if it sounds like it might have been something that Landon wanted. And so Angelica went through the whole process of, because these are custom signs, doing the designs, giving him, samples of what it would look like, and finally getting his approval. And then he didn't end up wanting that sign.
He wanted a neon sign, but it wasn't for him. It was somebody else's company.
So, of course, that's disappointing. But then he came back to her and said, hey, well, could you make me a sign, which is the logo for my company? And so, again, they went through the process, and she produced the sign, and she sent the sign out to him. And all she wanted from him was the $100 for shipping. Well, according to her, he never paid her the $100 for shipping, even though she gave him her Venmo and was expecting, and by all signs from Joe, was going to get paid, never got paid. So I don't blame Angelica for being such an optimist. It's a very good quality to have, and I don't put any blame on her whatsoever for trusting people. And these are people, like she said in her video, she looked up to. She was a fan of theirs. She talked about how she paid $1,000 to go to one of their events, to one of the basketball events, and took pictures. And she's got pictures with Landon and with members of the Ace family. So she clearly was a fan. Why would she think that they would screw her over? Although we know why. But anyway, so then there came a time when Joe came back and said, well, hey, would you like to do another sign? You could do one for Souline's room, and you could do her name with a heart. And so they went back and forth on that.
So a couple months later, he was like, hey, do you want to get Sol a sign? Because that's, I adore that little girl. I was like, yeah, I would love to get her a sign. So we worked together, and then he's like, yeah, Landon's going to shout you out in his YouTube video. And I was like, what? This is crazy. Like, oh my God, I was so hyped. Like, this is the big break I've been wanting as a small business.
He didn't end up asking her to send it, but he did come back a while later and asked her just to send the heart, which she says she thought was a little strange because it didn't have the name. So it sounds like from what she said that she sent them the heart. Again, she paid the shipping. They didn't pay anything for it. Had alluded to, or had intimated to her in his DMs, was that they were going to do a house tour video of Landon's new digs, and that they were going to show the signs, and that Landon would give her a shout out. And of course she was ecstatic. She was like, wow, this is awesome. And I would be too. It's like great publicity. So she sent the heart on good faith.
Yeah, he was just like, put me, give us the signs, and then we'll put you in your YouTube video.
And so, the sign, she figured she'd see the heart sign in Souline's room. Souline has a room in Landon's house. So when she comes to visit her two dads, when she comes to visit her dad, she has somewhere to stay. And of course, I'm sure he wants it to be very cute. And I'll show you some bits from the house tour that Landon gave it sort of towards the end, and I have a few comments about that too. So she sent off the heart. Again, she paid for the shipping. She had been basically promised, according to her, by Joe, that Landon would be showing the signs during the house tour, and that she would get some shout out and some credit for her business. Of course, she was very excited. Anyone would be. Well, I think you guys know where this is going. So the house tour video came out, and I'll talk about it in a minute. And Landon did his really creepy tour of the house, making all kinds of weird comments. And every single TV, by the way, as an aside, every TV, and you'll see in the house on this tour, has video of Landon playing. So talk about an ego. And, I don't know. Maybe he hasn't looked in the mirror in a while, but I don't know why he's so in love with himself. But anyway, so the tour came, and she sees Souline's room, and there's a sign that says Soul with a heart, but it's not the heart she sent them.
When I was watching the YouTube video, it was Soul's sign. It was like Soul's name with a heart from another company. They shouted them out, and then I seen my sign that I had got Joe, and they didn't shout me out. They were just like, oh, Joe has this fire neon sign. And I was like, oh. They were like, he has a fire this, he has a fire that, he has a fire TV or whatever. And I was like, dang, like they couldn't even just shout me out.
So Landon starts giving shouts out to this other company that I'm not going to name. And he like talked about the sign they made for his room. He talked about the sign they made for Souline's room. He then talks about a strawberry sign that they made for him. When Landon gets to Joe's room and the sign that Angelica made of Joe's logo, Landon goes, and that's Joe's fire neon sign. And so at first it sounds like, oh, well, he is giving her a shout out. Well, then he turns and he goes, and that's Joe's fire computer, and that's Joe's fire TV.
All right, coming into Joe's room. Very, very clean. Honestly, the cleanest I've ever seen it. He has his logo up on the wall, very fire neon sign. He has his setup, very fire. He has a sexy man up here on his TV, which is fire.
So basically trying to make sure that he didn't really give her any credit, even though he said fire neon in what he was saying. It wasn't clear that he was talking about any specific company. So Angelica didn't really get a shout out at all. It sounded like Landon was going out of his way to make sure she didn't get a shout out. And of course she talks about how there was nothing down in the description, no links, nothing. Okay, so basically she got nothing. And so you can see in that video what I'm talking about. So here, Angelica, who's starting up her own business, who I'm sure doesn't have a lot of capital to work with, she spent all of this time going back and forth with Joe, and you can see that in the DMs, and doing designs and getting approvals, and then finally sending 2 signs out, never getting paid for the shipping. So she's not only out her time and materials, but on top of it, she's also had to pay out of her pocket for shipping. So in essence, they got these signs, the 2 signs that she did send for free, and she got nothing in return. I think that's pretty crappy. And I don't blame her for being upset. And she talks about how people said to her, well, how could you get into business with them? And, you know, again, I don't blame her. She's an optimist. But we all know that if you've got a business, you don't do business with the Ace family, because there are too many instances we've seen where people come after them because they haven't gotten paid. So Angelica goes on to talk about how she tried to not let it upset her, and she reached back out to Joe and said, hey, what happened? And Joe kind of brushed it off. He said, well, how can we make it right? And she said, well, why don't you give me $250 each for each of the 2 signs I did make?
You wanted my product, you got my product, you posted it in your video, but you decided to give a bigger neon sign company the credit for their other signs. So I reached out and I was like so hurt. I was like, what's going on? Like, I'm so disappointed. I wanted, I thought that was the deal. Joe was like, oh, things got busy or something, like, it was I don't know, like I got busy or it was oversight or something. I don't know what he said. And I was like, he was like, what can we do to make this work? And I was like, well, you can just pay me for the signs, like, because what can I do? I can't do anything. You already have the product, you use the product. And I was like, just pay me $250 per sign. He didn't pay me the signs.
Crickets. Never heard back from him, never got any money. And so she's then has gone on to make a series of videos, and the link to her YouTube page is down below, where she talks about how upset she is, and I don't blame her. And I don't think you guys would blame her. So let's now go and show a little bit more of that house tour, because there's a couple of things I wanted to point out. And by the way, this video today, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, is brought to you by the words selfish and bastard. Okay? So Landon showed us his new house, which looks very nice, but it's not clear whether he's renting or owns it. My guess is he's probably renting, and he's got 2 roommates. He's got one guy, and he's got Joe, the director, living with him in a nice cozy setting. And they've got a room for Souline, and he shows us the house. And again, literally every single room you go into, the TV in that room is playing video of Landon McBroom. So, okay. Clearly a narcissist. Runs in the family. Now, I want to talk to you about why this story particularly bothered me. Because if you remember back in July when Rich Lux and I went to Ace Fest, and there was Mr. Joe, the wannabe director, waiting for us like the welcoming committee, and he forgot the flowers and confetti, but that's okay. But he proceeded to make some really nasty negative comments to Rich and I about how we were basically terrible people for the terrible things we were saying about the Ace family on social media. And then as I turned to leave, he said something to the effect of, "So you're doing the walk of shame?" And I had turned to him and said, "I'm not ashamed. Are you ashamed?" I'm not ashamed. Are you ashamed? I think those words are again appropriate for right now. So Joe, are you ashamed because of what you've done? This poor girl who's working hard to start her own business, and you go and do this scummy thing to her where you don't honor your promise to her and you don't even pay her for the stuff she did. Aren't you ashamed? Because you should be ashamed of yourself, because what I do is report on the crap you do and they do. I don't do the crap. You guys do the crap. And here's another example of where you guys have done the crap to some other innocent victim. And I think it really sucks. So I want you guys to tell me down in the comments below, what do you think? Do you think this was just an oversight that he didn't do anything to pay her, or she didn't get any credit for the work that she did, even though she was told that she would get some credit? Let me know. And I just want to show you guys, before we go, just a brief clip of Landon's house tour, because there's a funny thing he says.
When Joe installed these, and when Joe first installed them, he messed up and he had like, there's like these plastic dividers around here because he didn't think he had to take them off. But what he did is he came downstairs, I guess this morning before we filmed, and he took it all off, so now it looks perfect and nice. Damn, shout out to Uncle Joe. I want to basically feel as if like a woman lived here, or as if a woman helped me with this house.
So I don't know, you figure that out. Anyways, I want to thank a few people now who sent us some stuff from Amazon, who we really appreciate you guys every time we get something from Amazon, and it's all for the cats, as I've told you before. The cats absolutely love it. So I want to say a big thank you first to Laureen K, who sent us some lightweight Tidy Cats litter, which I appreciate because I go through a lot of cat litter every week. I also want to thank Diane V. She sent us 2 jumbo things of treats, and she sent us a thing of mice as well. And I want to thank JoJo, who sent us a case of the Friskies wet cat food. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And I want to thank Sammy L, who sent us a thing of the catnip mice that the cats love so much. They just go through those things like you wouldn't believe. But I thank you so much. The treats, the food, the mice, the litter, all of those are essentials in this house, and we really, really appreciate you guys. Thank you so much. If you'd like me to thank you on one of the videos, the Cat's wish list on Amazon is listed down below in the description. But I want to say thank you to all of our Patreon patrons. We have some new ones this month. You guys, your support is essential. That's the money that goes towards the cat vet bill every month, and I really, really appreciate it. And I want to thank all of the channel members. We've got some new channel members, and I want to say thank you to them. And I also want to say a special thank you to Terry S, who bought me 5 coffees. Thank you so much. The coffees are the only thing that are for me. The rest of it is all for the cats. But I want to thank you guys for your continued support. I appreciate all of you. We love all of you. You are what makes this worth doing. Take care of yourselves, and I will see you in the next one.
Pretty please. Subscribe, like, and hit the bell. I get a treat for every new sub. Thank you.